Hello guys, let's move on with chapter 3, that is Introduction to Physical Layer 1. So as of now we are discussed with TCP/IP model along with OSI reference model. So from now onwards we are going to talk with respect to an individual layers. So currently in this chapter 3 we are gonna discuss with respect to a physical layer 1. What are the different actions to be taken up in case of a physical layer 1? So let's start with the physical layer 1. So coming to an introduction part, so we all know that the functionality or the major purpose of physical layer is to move a bit, right? It is to transmit a bit from a sender to a receiver. So here also the major functionality of a physical layer is to move the data in the form of electromagnetic signals by using a transmission media. So by using any of the transmission media, they'll try to change the data into a electromagnetic signals. So whether you are collecting a numeric statistics from one computers or sending animated pictures from a design workstation, or you can causing a bell which is setting at a distant control center, or you're working with any transmission of data across network connection. So whatever the data is it, but in case of a physical layer, it has to convert it in the form of electromagnetic across electromagnetic signal by using a transmission media. So it is the major functionality of physical layer. So the major purpose is to transmission of data across a network connections. So generally the data usable to a person or an application are not in the form that can be transmitted over the network. To be transmitted, the data must be transferred to electromagnetic signal. We know that, right? So whatever the data that we are used today. So let me take an example of a photographer. So let me take an example of a photographer. So whatever the photo that he captured by using his camera. So let's take an example of photographer itself. So a photographer, whatever the photo that he take, first he must be changed to a form that the transmission media can accept, right? So the transmission media work by conducting a energy along a physical path. So there should be a work or there should be a media which carry out a work by conducting particular energy across a physical bit. So here the data which is used by a person or application are generally not in the form which are transmitted over any piece of a network. So in order to be in a particular manner or in order to be transmitted, the data must be converted into a electromagnetic signal. So whatever the data that we are used, whatever the data that we are turned, whatever the data that we are passed is, it is not in the form of which were the data that has to be collected by a network. So network is not able to recognize the data as a raw material. So the data, in order to be transmitted over any network, the data must be transferred to electromagnetic signals. Since the electromagnetic signals are the very best familiarity of a networks. So whatever the data that you must give into a network, that must be transferred to a electromagnetic signals. So next, we know that whatever the communication that takes place at a physical layer is just an exchanging of signals, is just an exchanging of bits, is just a transferring of bits. So data needs to be transmitted and received, but the media have to change the data to signals. So at a time, the transmitting and receiving can take place, but the media has to change the data into a signal. So whatever the data is transmitted, whatever the data is receiving, all these data has to be changed into a signals. So in case of a physical layer or in case of any of the transmission media, in a case of any of a network, these data as well as the signals are represented in case of a two different entities. One is an analog and another one is a digital. So we have an analog signal or a digital signal, or we have an analog data and digital data. We have a two different entities. One is an analog data and digital data, analog data and digital data, and one more is analog signal and digital signal. So these are the two different types of representing a signal. So representing a data and signals in an electromagnetic manner. So they might ask you in your exams, enumerate the difference between an analog data and digital data, and also explain the differences between an analog signal and digital signal. So now today in this session, I'm going to explain you about an analog data, digital data, along with that analog signal and digital signal. So let's move on and discuss with respect to the analog data and digital data along with analog signal and digital signal. Yeah, let's start with an analog and digital data. So these both data and the signals, here we have an analog data and digital data. So here the data can be an analog or a digital. As I said, whatever the data that we are used, either by a human or by some other entity, all the data must be an analog or a digital. So here the term analog is nothing but the information which is continuous. So whereas the digital is vice versa of analog, that is the digital data is the information that has a discrete state. So let us consider an example for this analog as well as a digital data. So take an example of, let's take an example of analog clock. So I think you all familiar with this word called analog clock. You have familiar with this analog clock, right? So this analog clock, it eventually has hours, right? Minutes, and even a seconds, right? So by using this, by watching the analog clock, it will give it the work of an analog clock is displaying in hour, minute, and seconds. So this will gives an information in a continuous form. So it will eventually gives an information like, so now it is, now the time is 1 o'clock 35 minutes with 48 seconds, right? So it will gives an information in a continuous manner. So analog clock is the best information, best examples of analog data. Here the movements of hands are continuous, right? So whenever you are observing a clock, the movements of hands in a clock are continuous, right? So this is the best example of analog data. So coming to a digital data, so let's take an example of digital clock. You have observed, right? In case of a digital clock, it will report the hours and minutes. It will report the hours and minutes, right? So let's take an example called, it is 8 o'clock, 5 minutes. So then it never display anything about a seconds. Then it eventually changes from 8 to 8:05 to 8:06, right? So this is called a discrete state. So the information that has a discrete, that doesn't display the continuous entities. So this is an example of digital data. So let's take one more example for analog as well as a digital data. So take an example of a sound. Take an example of a sound which is made by a human. Let's consider as a human voice itself. Take an example of human voice itself. So it's a continuous voice, continuous value. So when someone speaks, an analog wave is created in the air. This can be captured either by using a microphone or it can be converted to an analog signals. So let's take an example for digital data. So in order to have a digital data, it will be of data which are stored in a computer memory. So for this, data in a computer memory. So always we know that the data should be stored in a computer is in a form of binaries, that is the zeros as well as a ones, right? So this eventually converted to a digital signals and modulated into an analog signals by using the transmission media. So these are the examples of, these are the very good examples for analog as well as a digital data. So let's look at with some more in depth of analog and digital data. So as I said, analog data takes a continuous value. When someone speaks, an analog wave is created in the air. this wave is captured by microphone and converted to an analog signals and converted to a digital signal. So digital data is takes on discrete value. The best example is data stored in a computer memory. We know that whatever the data that is stored in a computer memory is always in a binary forms, that is a zeros and ones format. So they can be converted into a digital signals, or it can be modulated into an analog signals for transmission across a medium. So this is about an analog and digital data. So data can be an analog or digital. Analog data is a continuous and take continuous value, whereas digital data is a discrete states and take discrete value. Clear? So moving on with analog and digital signals. So like the data that they represent, signals can either be an analog or they can be a digital. So coming to an analog signals, when I say about an analog signal, it has many levels. So it has many levels of intensity over a particular period of time. So at a particular period, it will have n different numbers of levels. So as the wave moves from value A to value B, it passes through and includes an infinite numbers of values along with its path. So whenever we are going to create any particular wave, so for example, if I take this as my representation of signals, so this is my A and this is instantly my B. So in order to go through like this, it eventually passes through some of the values. It eventually passes with infinite numbers of values along its path. So in order to reach here, it will eventually passes with n numbers of paths. So this is an example of analog signals. So analog signal has infinitely many levels of intensity over a particular period of time. So the best example is a wave which suddenly moves from a value A to value B. So next is a digital signals. So digital signals can have a limited numbers of defined values. So each value can be any numbers. It is often as simple as 1 and zeros. So this is the representation of analog signals. So this is the representation, or this is a pictorial representation which illustrates an analog signals, and this is an example which illustrates an digital signals. So here in this example, the curve here representing an analog signals passes through an infinite numbers of points. So here the vertical lines of a digital signals will shows the sudden jump which makes the signals from value to value. So here it eventually makes. So let's see here in this example. Here in case of an analog signals, as we are observing here, it's an analog signals. So the curve here, we have a curve, right? So this will makes, whenever a curve passing through, it will have an infinite numbers of points. So it will have an infinite numbers of points. So whereas it will points with some other entities called here, it will points to some 2, 4. If I marked it as a 2, 4, and here it as a -2 and -4, it eventually passes with all the different values. But what in case of a digital data or digital signal is, here we have a vertical signals which shows a sudden jump from value to value. For example, if it is 2, if it is 0, it will show a sudden jump from 2 to 0, and it eventually increases with some other values, and it eventually jumps. So this is about a digital signals. So this is all about a analog as well as a digital signals. So signals can be an analog or digital. Analog signals can have an infinite numbers of levels, whereas digital signals can have only a limited numbers of levels. So This is about an analog as well as a digital signals. So let's move on. We have one more thing called as a periodic as well as a non-periodic signals. So both we have learned with analog and digital signals. So both this analog and digital signals can take with two different forms. One is a periodic and another one is a non-periodic. Sometimes this non-periodic is also called as an aperiodic. So this non-periodic is also called as an aperiodic. So this non-periodic is sometimes called as an aperiodic. Why? Because it's a prefix a in Greek means it's a non. So a prefix a is nothing but a non in case of a Greek terminologies. So sometimes the non-periodic is called as an aperiodic. So let's discuss with what do you mean by a periodic and non-periodic. So a periodic signal is a signal which completes a pattern within a measurable time frame. So within a measurable time frame. So whatever the signal that is passed through, it completes a particular pattern and it eventually measurable. So such a pattern which is measurable with its time frame is called as a period, and it eventually repeats the pattern over subsequent identical period. The completion of one full pattern is called as a cycle. So the completion of one full pattern is called as a cycle. So periodic signal is a signal which completes a particular pattern within a given period of time or within a measurable time frame, and that is called as a period. And the completion of one full period is called as a cycle. So let's move on with discuss with aperiodic. What do you mean by an aperiodic? So in the non-periodic or an aperiodic signal changes without exhibiting a pattern or without exhibiting a cycle. So it never exhibit any particular pattern. It eventually changes. That repeats over a particular period of time. It eventually changes. So next, both analog and digital signal can be a periodic as well as a non-periodic. In data communication, we commonly use a periodic analog signals. Why? Because they need less bandwidth. So we'll discuss about this periodic and aperiodic in the later upcoming modules. So let's so next we have a periodic analog signal. So moving ahead, we have periodic analog signals. So periodic analog signals can be classified as a simple as well as a composite. So as I said, in case of a data communication, we always preferred with periodic analog signals. So this periodic analog signals can be classified as a simple as well as a composite. So let's see, what do you mean by a simple and what do you mean by a complex analog signal? So what do you mean by a simple periodic signal is it's a sine wave which cannot be decomposed into smaller signals. So it's a wave which cannot be decomposed or which cannot be divided into simpler signals or which cannot be divided into further more signals. Whereas the composite signal is nothing but it's a composition of multiple sine waves. So it can be composed by multiple sine waves. So here we have a sine wave. So this sine wave is the most fundamental form of periodic analog signals. So when we are going to visualize it as a simple oscillating curve, here we have a curve, right? It changes over the course of a cycle and it is smooth as well as a consistent, continuous and a rolling flow. Here, whatever the sine wave we are considering, it is a smooth, consistent and rolling flow. Here, this figure will depict a sine wave. Here, each cycle consists of a single arc. Here, it is consists of single arc above the time axis, and followed by a single arc below the time axis. Again, it is followed by single arc above the time axis and single arc below the time axis. Again, one more is above the time axis and below the time axis. So this is the representation of sine wave, which is not decomposed into simpler form. So a sine wave can be represented by three different parameters, that is peak amplitude, frequency, as well as a frame. So these parameters fully describes a phase, fully describes a sine wave. So by using these three parameters, we can fully describe a sine wave, that is by using a peak amplitude, frequency, and phase. So let's discuss what do you mean by these three different parameters. So moving ahead, we're going to know about three different parameters of sine wave. Firstly, we have with peak amplitude. So the peak amplitude is the absolute value of its highest intensity, which is proportional to the energy which it carries. So for example, for electrical signals, the peak amplitude is normally measured in case of a volts. So the SI unit of peak amplitude is volts. So by using a volts, we can measure the peak amplitude. So peak amplitude is nothing but it's an absolute value of its highest intensity, which is proportional to its energy it carries. So peak amplitude of a signal is an absolute value of its highest intensity, which is directly proportional to the energy of a particular signal. So the SI units of peak amplitude is volts. So here it will show us the peak amplitude. It will show the representation of a peak amplitude. Here in this figure, two signals are there. So here in this figure, we have two different figures. So here the sine wave above the time axis and below the time axis. So there is a curve between above the time axis and below the time axis. So here is in this case also it is same, above the time axis and below the time axis. So what is the thing here is, here we have two different signals, right? Here we have two different signals with peak amplitude. So with respect to these two signals, this will have a high peak amplitude since the curve is taking some more amount of time, right? So here it is a low peak amplitude, because it takes some less amount of time, right? So this is the two different peak amplitude. It's with high peak amplitude and this is with low peak amplitude. So it is measured with respect to its time as well as an amplitude. So these are the two different signals with the same phase and frequency but different amplitude. Here it is having the same frequency. Here it is having the same frequency and same phase, but it will having with different amplitude. So here it is the peak amplitude of a particular first signal. So it is having a high peak amplitude. Here it is having a very low peak amplitude. So this is a representation of peak amplitude. So let's move on with know about another two parameters of a sine wave. So next we have a period and frequency. So what exactly a period? Period, as we know that period is nothing but a time duration, right? So period refers to the amount of time in seconds a signal needs to complete one particular cycle. So in order to complete a one cycle, what is the total amount of time which is required by a signal is known as a period. So whereas the frequency refers to the number of periods. So the frequency refers to the number of periods in 1 second. So periods and frequency are just one characteristics which are defined in two different ways. Frequency and periods are the inverse of each other, whereas the frequency period is calculated by t is equals to 1 by frequency, whereas the frequency is 1 by period. So period is formally expressed in terms of seconds, whereas frequency is expressed in terms of hertz, which is cycle per second. So this is about the periods and frequency. So here in this example, there are two different signals with same amplitude and phase, but with different frequency. So here observe in this figure A, we have a 12 periods in 1 second and the frequency is 12 hertz. So In a 1 second, 12 different periods are taken up. And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So in a one particular second, in one seconds of period, 1 second of time, it will takes for 12 different period, and its frequency is 12 hertz. Whereas in this case, a signal is with 6 different hertz, which is nothing but it's a space signal which is passed with 6 different period in 1 second, and the frequency is 6 hertz. How we are going to calculate the period is 1 by f, right? So it is 1 by 12 seconds. Here it is 1 by 6 seconds. So this is the two different signals with same amplitude and phase, but with different frequency. So let's move on. So next we have a term called phase. So what do you mean by a phase? So we know that phase is nothing but a position, right? So phase is a position. So the term phase describes the position of a waveform which relative to the time zero. So if we think the wave as something that can be shifted backward or forward along with the time axis, phase describes that phase. So if the phase is something that can be shifted backward or forward along the time axis, the phase describes the amount of that particular shift. So phase is nothing but a forward or backward of a particular wave. So phase is nothing but backward or forward of wave along the time axis. So it determines the backward or forward of a wave along a particular time axis. So it indicates the status of a first cycle. By using a phase, we can indicate a first cycle. So this phase is measured in terms of a degrees or radians. So here the phase shift of 360 degree corresponds to a shift of a complete period. If I say it's a complete period, then it must ensures that it's a phase shift with 360 degree. So the phase is eventually measured in degrees. So for a complete period, the period shift is 360 degree. So if I say the phase shift is 180 degree, then it is a 1/2 of a particular period. So if it is a 90 degree, then it's a 1/4 of a particular period. So it is a 1/2 of a particular period, and it is a 1/4 of a particular period. So this is about a phase. So here we have a phase. So there are 3 sine waves. Here we have a 3 sine waves with the same amplitude and frequency, but different phases. So here we have a different phases. See here, it's with 0 degree. Here in this first figure, we have a 0 degree. That is for full complete period. Here we have a 90 degree because it takes with 1/4 of a particular period. So here we have an half of time period. So it is a 180 degree of a phase. So let's move on with some more aspects of analog as well as the digital signals. So next we have one more terminology called wavelength. So we know that when after learning about a wave, we need to learn about a wavelength, right? So wavelength is a characteristics of a particular signal which is traveling across transmission media. So in order to travel any signal, we need a transmission media. So this wavelength will bind the period or a frequency of a simple sine wave in order to propagate the speed of a particular medium. So how we are going to describe the wave is, if I say this as a transmission media, so either the wave will be like this, or it is a complete wave, or eventually it is something like this, or sometimes it eventually passes like this. So it depends on the transmission, it depends on the frequency as well as a media. So wavelength is always depends on 2 different things. One is a frequency and another one is a media. Wavelength, it's a property of any type of a signal. Well, whenever we use this wavelength in a data communication, we are used to describe the transmission of light in an optical fiber communication systems. So wavelength is used in order to describe the transmission of a particular light in an optical fiber channel. So wavelength is the distance of a simple signal that can travel in one particular period. So wavelength can be calculated if one of the given the propagation speed and the period of the signal. So how we are going to calculate this wavelength is we're going to calculate the wavelength is equals to propagation speed by frequency. So by using this formula, we will calculate the particular wavelength. So by using this formula, we calculate the particular wavelength. So let's move on with some more topics, that is digital signals. So until now, we are learned with the analog signals. So you don't, in your concepts, you don't have, or with respect to your syllabus, you don't have anything about a composite signals. So moving ahead, we have a topic called digital signals. So as I said, the digital signals are nothing but it's an signals where the information is represented in digital way or digital signals. So can have these digital signals can have more than two different levels. So digital signals can have more than two different levels, right? So this is the digital signal representation. Here we have a digital signals with two signals. So this figure will show us two signals, one with two levels and another with four levels. So here we have a one with two different levels and another one with four levels. Here in this case we have a level 1 and level 2. We have a two different levels. It's a data signals with two different levels, but here we have a four different levels. Here we have a negative also, right? So we send 1 bit per level. So we eventually send 1 bit per level. Here I passes a 1 and again 0, 0, 1, 1. I'll eventually passes 1 bit over a particular period of time. So here 8 bits sent in one particular second, whereas here 16 bits it's sent in one particular seconds. So this is the representation of digital signals. So next we have what do you mean by a bit rate and bit length. So we know that most digital signals are non-periodic. Thus the period and frequencies are not appropriate and characteristics. So we go with this bit rate. So instead of frequency, we are going with this bit rate. So instead of frequency, we use this term bit rate. So instead of frequency, we go with bit rate. Instead of frequency, we go with this bit rate. So bit rate is used to describe the digital signal. So bit rate, another term called a bit rate, instead of frequency is used to describe the digital signals. Whereas this bit rate is the number of bits which is sent in 1 second. So which is expressed in bit per second. So the bit per second. So bit length is the length, whereas the bit length so is the distance which occupies by 1 bit on a particular transmission media. So this is called as a bit length. So it's a distance 1 bit which occupies on a transmission media. So bit length is equals to propagation speed into bit duration. So by using this formula, we can calculate the bit length. So here we have a digital signals with two different levels. So next is transmission of digital signals. So with respect to this transmission of digital signals, So we know that our digital signals can be either a composite signal or it might be an analog signals with an infinite bandwidth. Yes, right. So there are two different approaches of transmission of digital signals. One is baseband transmission and another one is a broadband transmission. So by using these two different techniques, we can transmit a digital signals from one point to another point. So if I want to transfer a data from point A to point B, so at that circumstance, I'm going with these two approaches. That is by using a baseband transmission or by using a broadband transmission. So this broadband transmission is also called as using modulation transmission. So let's discuss with baseband and broadband transmission. So when I say with baseband transmission, it means sending a digital data over a channel without changing or without modifying the digital signals to analog signals. So baseband transmission is a signal which preserves the shape of a digital signals if and only if we have a low pass channel with an infinite or very wide bandwidth or a very large bandwidth. So in case of a baseband transmission, the required bandwidth is always proportional to the bit rate. So bandwidth is always proportional to the bit rate. So if you want to send bits faster, we need more bandwidth. So in order to send bits faster, we need bandwidth rate much more. So here this is a example of baseband transmission. So this shows a baseband transmission which requires a low pass channel. Here we have a low pass channel in order to communicate with two different entities. If I say this is a point A or computer A or this is a computer B and this is a transmission channel, if I want to send this signals, we need bandwidth. So the bits, whatever the bit that we are sending, the sending speed is always depends on the band rate. So the bit rate. So it will always depends on the bandwidth. So next we have a broadband transmission. So broadband is nothing but a modulation, means changing the digital signals or an analog signals for a transmission. So it is also called as using modulation. It allows a band pass channel with a channel with bandwidth doesn't start from zeros. So if the channel is available, is a band pass channel, we can't send the digital signal directly to the channel. We need to convert the digital signal into an analog signal before we're transmitting into our signals. So here we have an examples of band pass signals. So there's a bandwidth of two different low pass channels. Here we have a low pass channel with very wide bandwidth. Here it is a very wide bandwidth, larger bandwidth, and here it is a narrow or very small or narrower bandwidth. So this is a broadband channel. So modulation. So there's a broadband channel. They'll input a digital signals or they'll convert this by using an analog or digital converter. It will convert into an analog signal bandwidth, and so that analog input signal is obtained. So that analog input signal is passed through a band pass channel. So by using the available bandwidth, it will check with its fast rate, data transfer rate. So it eventually passes an input signal. Then it will convert into an analog output signal. So it will convert back into an output digital signal by using an analog or digital converter. So next we have one more important topic, that is a transmission impairment. So this is a very important and most predominantly asked in your exams, that is transmission impairment. So what do you mean by a transmission impairment? Why we need this transmission impairment is, so we know that the signals will travel through the transmission media which are not perfect. So this imperfection will cause the signal impairment. So whatever the signal that travels through transmission media, all are not a perfect. Some are perfect, some are not perfect. So this imperfection will cause the signal impairment. So this means that the signal at the beginning of a medium is not as the same when the signal will reach its destination. So whatever the signals that we are sending, So it is not as the same that is received at a receiving end. So there are three major causes, or there are three major entities which causes an impairment, that is attenuation, distortion and noise. So let's discuss with these three entities. First we have an attenuation. So what do you mean by attenuation? So attenuation is nothing but a loss of energy. So when a signal, either it is a simple or a composite, it travels through any transmission media, it loses some of its energy. So whenever it's traveling, it loses its energy. So to compensate for this loss, an amplifier is used in order to amplify the particular signals. So for this reason only, we are going to use a wire called electrical. We'll go with the wire which carrying an electronic signals. So here this figure will shows the effect of attenuation and amplification. So here will shows so originally the signal is like this. Whenever it is passed over any channel, the signal is like this. So in the middle or while traveling, it will get attenuated. Attenuated is nothing but it loses some energy. So the form of this signals is converted into this distorted form. So by using this amplifier, we can modify this loss of a signal and will again go back with the original signals. So this is about an attenuation. So in order to get back the original form of a wave or original form of a signal, we use this amplifiers. So next, we have a decibel. So to show that the signal has lost or gained, this the term called decibel is used by engineers. So this decibels is also termed by dB, which measures the relative strength of two different signals or one particular signals at two different points. So the decibel is negative if a signal is attenuated. What do you mean by attenuated? If the signal is getting lost or if the signal is getting damaged. So at that particular time, the decibel is negative. So if the signal is perfect or if the signal is amplified, then it is positive. So the decimal is of two different terms. One is with negative and another one with positives. So next, it is eventually calculated by dB is equals to 10 log base to P2 by P1, where this P2 and P1 are two different variables. Here this P2 and P1 are the two different variables with the power of a signals which points at 1 and 2 respectively. It eventually pass at 1 and 2 respectively. So by using this, we eventually calculate the decibel values. So by using this, we can calculate the dB values. So here the P1 and P2 are the powers of a signal at 0.1 and 0.2 respectively. So next terminologies which causes an attenuation is which causes an impairment is distortion. So what do you mean by distortion? Distortion is nothing but a signal which changes its form or which changes its shape from the source node to a destination source. So whatever the data or whatever the signal that we are sending in case of a sending agent, it will eventually changes whenever it reaches its destination. So it eventually occurs at a composite signals. So we don't need to worry about this composite signals. So moving ahead, so each signals or each signal component has its own propagation speed by using a transmission media. Therefore, it is having own delays. Which will have a certain arrival time dispatches. So there is a difference in delay, which may create a difference in a particular phase. So if there is any delay occur, then we'll also create a difference in a particular phase. So this is about a distortion. So this is the pictorial representation of how the distortion takes place on a particular media. So it shows the effect of distortion on a composite signals. here we have a composite signals which is sent. So in phase it eventually changes. Again, it changes with its shapes, right? So here observe, here whatever the composite signals that we have sent, it's not in the form that they are received. So they are different among different frequencies. So this is called as a distortion. So the last terminology. So next is noise. So noise is also another cause of impairment. So noise is one more cause of transmission impairment. So there are different types of a noise. That is a thermal noise. This thermal noise is a random motions of electrons in a wire, which creates an external signals, which is not originally sent by the transmitters. Whereas an induced noise, it's come from a source such as motors or appliances. Whereas a crosstalk, so crosstalk will eventually occur when there is a connection between one or more wires. So one wire on the other wires. So we'll observe somewhere when in our day-to-day life, right? So one wire, if it is a one wire, there is another wire that's dragging upon. So this is a crosstalk. So next, we have an impulse noise. So it's a spike which comes from a power lines or lightning. So impulse noise, which it will eventually generate it in case of a cables. So in case of a large motors or large electrical appliances. So in case of a turbines, so impulse noise will a spike that comes from power lines. So these are the different. These are the noise how it eventually passes through. So this is a noise. These are original signals which is transmitted. So due to the effect of a noise, this it get disturbed. So at the end, it will receive with some other format of signals. So this is how the noise will affect the transmission of signals. So it eventually changes how it is. So next is signal to noise ratio, which is also called as SNR ratio, which is also called as an SNR ratio. So let's see what do you mean by this SNR ratio. So this is the signal, the ratio of signal power to the noise power, which is used to find the theoretical bit rate. So it is calculated by using the formula called average signal power by average noise power. So the signal to noise ratio is divided by, it's a composition of average signal power by average noise power. So we need to consider the average signal power and the average noise power. Why? Because these may change with different times. So the noise and signals will changes with respect to the time. So SNR is actually the ratio of what the signal is wanted, and the noise is what the signal is not wanted. So high SNR means the signal is less corrupted by a noise, whereas the low SNR means signal with more corrupted by noise. So SNR is the ratio of two different powers. One is a signal power and another one is a noise power, which is described by using a decibel unit. So it is SNR dB, which is defined as SNR dB is equals to 10 log base 10 SNR. So these are the two different cases of SNR, one with high SNR and another one with the low SNR values. So next we have a concept called data rate limit. So it is a very important consideration in case of a data communication. So is how fast we can send the data in bits per second. So it depends on the data rate, it depends on three main factors. One is the available bandwidth, levels of signals what we use, the quality of a channel, which is also called as a level of noise. So there are two different formulas which were developed in order to calculate this data rate. One is by using a Nyquist for a noiseless channel and another one is Shannon for noisy channel. So this data rate limits can be calculated for two different channels. So one is for noisy channel and another one is for noiseless channel. One is for noisy and another one for noiseless channel. So we have a Nyquist for noiseless and Shannon for noisy channel. So let's discuss with this noisy and noiseless channels. So Nyquist bitrate. So for a noiseless channel, a Nyquist bitrate formula will define the theoretical maximum bitrate, which is given by bitrate is equals to 2 into bandwidth with respect to log base 2 of a particular length. So according to a formula, it gives a specific bandwidth. We can have any bitrate we want by increasing the number of signals levels. So if the number of signal level increases, it imposes a burden on the receivers. So if the number of levels is just a 2, the receiver can easily distinguish between zeros and ones. If it is a 64, our receiver may be very sophisticated to distinguish between 64 different levels, right? So in other words, increasing the levels will also increasing the reliability of a particular system. So this is a Nyquist bit, right? So according increasing the levels of a signals, we eventually reduces the reliability of a particular systems. So next we have a Shannon capacity. So Shannon capacity is for a noisy channel. So in reality, we cannot have any particular noiseless channel. So the channel, whatever the channel we got, is always a noisy channel. So in the year 1944, a person by name Claude Shannon introduced a formula called Shannon capacity. So by using this Shannon capacity formula, we can find out or we can determine the theoretical highest data rate for noisy channel. So the person Shannon in his formula, he'll never indicate any indication for a particular signal level, which means there is no indication of a signal level, which means that no matter how many levels we have, we cannot achieve a data rate higher than the capacity of a channel. So in case of a Shannon capacity, they never considered with respect to a number of levels. So they always concentrate with the data rate as well as the capacity. So the Shannon capacity formula is capacity is equals to bandwidth into log of 1 plus SNR ratio. In other words, this formula will define the characteristics of a channel, not the method of transmission. So Shannon formula will give us 6 Mbps of upper limit for a better performance, which is something lower, that is 4 Mbps. Then we use the Nyquist formula to find the number of signals levels. That is 4 Mbps is equals to 2 into 1 log base L. That is, this is the Nyquist formula in order to find the number of signals levels. So the Shannon capacity will give the upper limit. Next, we have a parameter called performance. So performance is one of our important topic with respect to know the performance of a network. So up to now, we have discussed the tools of transmitting signals over a particular network and how the data will behave. So now we have one important issues in networking, which is the performance of a network. How good the network is. So how it will perform. So we discussed the quality of service and overall measurement of network performance. So the characteristics that measures the network performance are bandwidth, throughput, latency, and jitter. So let's see with these 4 entities. The first is bandwidth. So it is the one characteristics which measures the network performance in a bandwidth. So it is used to measure the network performance. So bandwidth is used to measure the network performance. Bandwidth is used to measure the network performance. However, the term can be used in 2 different constant with 2 different meaning. So this term will used with 2 different constant with 2 different meaning. So one is bandwidth in hertz, which refers to the range of frequency in a composite signals or a range of frequency that a channel can pass, and another one with bands with bit per second, which refers to the speed of bits which transmit in a channel or particular link. So next is a relationship. So there is an explicit relationship between a bandwidth in hertz and bandwidth in bits per second. Basically, an increase in bandwidth in hertz means an increase in bandwidth in bit per second. So this relationship depends on whether we have a baseband transmission or whether we have a broadband transmission. So based on the baseband and broadband transmission, we go with the bandwidth in bits per second or bandwidth in hertz. So the next entity with respect to performance is throughput. So throughput is used to measure how fast we can actually send the data through any particular network. So a bandwidth in bit per seconds and throughput seems the same and they are different. A link may have a bandwidth of p bits per second, but we can only send t bits per second. So a bandwidth is a potential measurement of link, whereas a throughput is an actual measurement of how fast we can send the data. So here is an example. We may have a link with bandwidth of 1 Mbps, but the devices connected to the end of a link may handle only 20 kbps. So at that time, we cannot send more than 20 kbps. Imagine there is a highway designed to transmit 1000 cars per minute from one point to another point. So however, if there is a congestion on one road, this figure may be reduced to 100 cars per minute. So the throughput is 100 cars per minute. So the next is latency. So latency is also called as a delay. So latency or a delay defines how long it takes for an entire message to completely arrive at the destination from the time the first bit is sent out from a source. So latency is made of 4 different components. That is a propagation time, transmission time, queuing time, and processing delay. So latency is the composition of all 4 different entities. So propagation time means the time which is required for a bit to travel from a source to a destination. So it is calculated by dividing the distance by the propagation speed. So it eventually gives by distance by propagation speed. So here the propagation speed of electromagnetic signal will eventually depends on a media and the frequency of a signal. So next is transmission time. So the transmission time can be calculated by using a formula called message size by bandwidth. So it depends on the size of a message and the bandwidth of a channel. So there's a time between the first bit leaving the sender and the last bit arriving the receiver. So next is a queuing time. So what actually a queuing time is? The third component in a latency is queuing time. So it's a time needed for each intermediate or end devices to hold the message before it can be processed. So it is not a fixed factor. It will constantly changes with load imposed on a network. So when there is heavy traffic in the network, then the queuing time will increases. So when intermediate devices such as routers queues the arrived messages and processes them one by one. If there are many messages, each message will have to wait. So next we have a term called as a bandwidth delay product. So here bandwidth and delay are the two performance metrics of a particular link. However, as we see, what is very important in data communication is the product of two, that is a bandwidth delay product. So let us elaborate it with taking two hypothetical examples. One is assume that we have a link with one bandwidth of 1 bits per second and delay of link with 5 seconds. So here the bandwidth delay product means 1 into 5, that is 1 bits per second into the number of delays. So it will give the maximum number of bits that can fill the link. So this will show us the case 1. So filling the link with bits for case 1. So next the case 2. In case 2 we have a bandwidth of 5 bits. So there can be maximum of 5 into 5, that is 25 bits on a line. So the reason is that at each second there are 5 bits on a line. So the duration is 0.20 seconds. These two cases shows that the product of bandwidth and delay is the number of bits that can fill the link. This measurement is very much important if we need to send the data in a burst and we need to wait for an acknowledgement of each bit before sending the next one. To using the maximum capacity of a link or to use the maximum capability of a particular link, we need to make a size of our bits 2 times the product and delay. So we need to go with full duplex channel. So the sender should send a burst of data. So whenever the sender will send the data, each and every time the sender has to wait for an acknowledgement that has to be sent by a receiver. So for a part of a burst before sending in another burst. So the last is jitter. So jitter is a problem if data packets of data encounter different delays. So the delays are called as a jitter. So and the application using the data at the receiver side is a time sensitive. So if the delay for a first packet is 20 milliseconds, for the second is 45, and the third is 40 milliseconds, then it uses a packet induces jitter. So that's about a complete module 1. So it completes with the chapter 3. Thank you.